Welcome back to Late Fee Cinema. My name is Ryan Oleg-Miller. Today we have on a very special guest, but first let me introduce you to my co-host, Carson Hewley.
Hey guys, it's great to be back for another episode of the podcast. Today, Ryan and I are very excited to have Sev Ohanian on. He dabbles in a little bit of everything, I guess that's what we'll say, but he has written on Searching, Run, and he's a producer on the upcoming films Judas and the Black Messiah and Space Jam: A New Legacy. Sev, how are you doing today?
Man, it's great to be here, Carson. What's up, Ryan? This is so cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
You know, I'm missing the Super Bowl because of you guys.
I know. We know you've been a fan of the podcast for a while. Begging us, come on, guys, email me back. And we made some room.
Man. And the fact that I have to be doing Super Bowl Sunday couldn't have been better. And I'm totally kidding. I would much rather be doing this. So good to be here.
Awesome.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Sev. Ryan and I think all of the guests we've had on, we've been very, very fortunate to have guests on that we respect. But I think when it comes to the Sev Ohanian line, it's almost past respect. We're like, holy shit, this dude not only can write, but he can produce. I think Ryan and I personally both think one of the bigger up and coming filmmakers right now in the industry. So it's definitely a pleasure to be talking to you. We do know that, the start of your film career began at USC, but we're curious, prior to your education at USC, what drew you to film and wanting to get into the business?
Oh man, that's a great question. When I was really, really young, my mom took me and my little sister, and I grew up in LA, to our local library. And she made us pick out 10 books. I was maybe 7 years old at the time. And we didn't want to. I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this. I want to go play in the park. I'm going to go play a video game or whatever. But she was like, no, you're going to pick out 10 books and you're going to read each one and then you can go have fun. So we went home, I read the books and I was like, all right, I'm done. She's like, all right, cool, let's go have fun. And then she drove us right back to the same library and asked us to pick out 10 more. And it's crazy. She literally instilled, physically manifested within me and my sister, this real love of narrative and storytelling and exposing your mind to all the beautiful things that only books and other forms of medium, can take you to. And, growing up at that time, I kind of was obsessed with literature and storytelling. And I really wanted to be an author, that was kind of number one for me, specifically a children's book author. And I remember as a kid being man, when I grow up, I better not change my mind. I better not want to write movies, books for adults, but got to stay true to myself. Definitely did not stay true to myself. But when I was in high school, I really started thinking about it. Man, okay, writing books, is that really a feasible career? What are the odds? And I'm a bit of a risk averse kind of guy. I realized it was probably going to be a little bit too risky. So then I thought, okay, what about movies? I love movies. It's great storytelling there. I can write movies. I can make movies. And then I realized how risky that was. I'm like, man, I can't do all this, I can't gamble on my career, on my life. So I decided to settle for something, at the time I felt was much stabler. Wasn't writing books, wasn't writing, movies, but rather writing the news. I was like, oh, I'll be a journalist. I love that. Clark Kent, why not? Let's do it. And I became a reporter in our school newspaper in high school. I ended up becoming the editor-in-chief as well my senior year. I interned at the LA Times. And then, ironically, it turned out that the least stable job you could have was probably writing news. Because at the time, I remember I was interning at the LA Times. This was 2004, 2005. And I could feel the anxiety in the news staff there of what the internet was going to do for their careers. And I had 50-year-old men cornering me in the hallways asking me what's a blog? Why is it free? And I was like, all right, maybe this isn't the right path. And around that time, I started just for fun, making little short videos, making fun of my family out of love. And I'm Armenian American. So it's kind of me having my friends pretend to be some Armenian American older father or whatever, yelling at his kids. Those videos, to my surprise, kind of became really viral at the time. And they kind of blew up in the international Armenian community. And people kind of was make another one. So shot another video and they were make another one. And my friends and I were why don't we just make a movie? And we took the same characters and the same kind of world that we've constructed with these low budget, no budget shorts. I wrote a movie. I bought Final Draft from a store called Pirate Bay, I think. And I wrote a movie. I'm making it up as I went along, and I shot it, I edited it, I lit it, I did every job you can imagine except for makeup. And then the makeup artist quit. So I did that too. I spent $800 on my dad's literally like home video camera that we would take with us on family vacations. And when I finished, I edited the film and I had it done. I screened it and I sold tickets and I sold DVDs. And again, this is a movie that's like in Armenian, right? So for a very, niche, like very small cultural group of people, although there's a lot of Armenians in LA specifically, and it blew up. Like it made tons of money and people showed up and people like around the world were buying DVDs. And more than anything, like other than the financial success, just the fact that complete strangers like had sought out something and enjoyed something and recommended it to others, something that I had thought of in my head, it really empowered me to kind of like say, forget the risks and like, let me pursue this full on. So at the time I was going to undergraduate college in San Diego where I was studying studying journalism. I switched my major to film and I applied for graduate school and I got into, what's I guess considered the #1 film school, which is USC School of Cinematic Arts.
That's amazing. And, after seeing Run, I'm just going to say this, I would not have expected you to be having the willingness or wanting to make children's books in the past. So that's concerning, but also it's pretty cool. I'm currently going to film school at CU Boulder, and I feel like a lot of it too is kind of learning the technical side of film and everything in that regard. I'm just in this class right now that's talking about producing, and you being a producer on so many films. I was wondering if you could talk about when you decided, hey, I want to be a producer as well as a writer, and the role of a producer within the film world.
That's a great question, Ryan. When I got into USC, and I was like 21, I just turned 21 when I started at SC. I wanted to be a director. I knew that in my bones. I'd seen so many movies by this point, watched all the commentaries. I'd seen all the behind the scenes pictures of the directors. They always seemed to be pointing at something. I wanted to be the guy pointing at something. And when I was at SC, like being a director, and I imagine it's probably the same for you at your film school, like it's kind of like the quarterback position. Like everyone wants to be homecoming queen, like that's being the director. And I was fortunate that I kind of had an opportunity to direct some of the films at USC that you were kind of like it's kind of like more competitive. You kind of have to like earn that right. But to be totally frank with you guys, like when I was on set, when I was directing, I wasn't feeling that complete satisfaction. I wasn't being creatively fulfilled in the way where it was like, man, I'm really meant to do this. It kind of felt a little bit more like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to want to do this and I should feel lucky that I'm doing it. But at the same time, like to me, like I was so much more fulfilled when I was able to produce. Because to me, like, and I'll talk to you guys about what my philosophy about producing is, which may or may not be like universal, but it gives you an opportunity to really be just as creatively involved in the making of a film, but not having to be as, I don't want to say bothered, but like being bothered with all the little details. You can kind of keep an eye on a much bigger picture. And to be frank with you guys, like I have a personality, my personality, I should probably just say I have an AD, I imagine. I don't know if I do, but like I need to work on a lot of things at once. I'm most satisfied when I can work on this and then come over here and work on that and work on this. And I think as a producer, it gives me that ability to have like 6 projects going on at the same time, but not in a way that's disservicing the projects because, I'm able to work with amazing directors. And, one of the things that I really, really, really love about USC, and I had a lot of professors, a man named John Watson, a woman named Brenda Goodman, who really taught us like this idea that oftentimes you may get from, watching the film industry from a distance is that it's like there's a director and it's all about the director, the filmmaker, and like the producer has their back. Like they're their loyal servant, their subject. They're the Alfred to their Bruce Wayne, they're Jarvis to their Tony Stark or whatever. But like what my professors taught me is that that's not the case. Like, but rather, filmmaking is, I would say, undeniably one of the most collaborative, art forms that probably exist. Because it's like only on a film can you have 400 people working on a single 2-hour storyline in which some people are craftsmen, some people are artists, some people are writers, some people are financiers and all that stuff. And it should always be creative. And I think the producer role is one that has to be not necessarily blindly supporting the director, but I would argue boldly challenging the director. And like, the way I've always seen it is like, I think, symbolically a director is somebody who on set has to have a telescope glued to their eye, right? Like at any moment, like, they have to like swing the telescope around and like examine, is this the right costume? Is this the right line? Is this the right motion? Is this the right beat? Is this the right scene? And then like they have to go over here and they have to go over here, have to go over here. But you know, being expected to be an expert at every little detail at any given time, it's really hard for filmmakers. I think what you need is a good producer who could be right next to you, who's keeping an eye out on the big picture while the director's looking at the little thing. And I think a lot of what my job becomes as a creative producer is like keeping them, like nudging the telescope a little more this way, and like, hey, don't forget this, and like, hey, you're saying you want to do red right now, but you said blue to the other thing, and like that's going to conflict, so we got to make a decision, and so forth. So I just love the creative satisfaction that I get. And when I was in film school, I kind of hid the fact that I wanted to be a writer. On one level, I was probably shy and insecure and embarrassed, but on the other level, I was also pretty strategic, because I really wanted to be a producer writer. But you know, to be a producer, you really need somebody to ask you to produce something, especially in film school. And if you're a director and you want to get the best producer you can get, do you want to get the guy that's the producer, or do you want to get the guy who's a producer who also writes? You know, like I didn't want to be like a multi-hyphenate in film school. So I marketed myself as like, I just want to be a producer. And like, I kind of really sought out all of the films that our professors were trying to constantly encourage us not to make. Because, you know, they're like, hey guys, don't make that one. It's too ambitious. It's going to be too expensive, too dangerous, too many animals, whatever it is. And I would be like, yo, let's make that one. Because, you know, you're in film school now, like there's such a smaller level of stakes, you know, like if you mess up the film, there's no studio that's going to lose millions of dollars and hate people. Like, you know, there's no Rotten Tomatoes score for student films, you know, like, so for me, it was like, why not try and do these ambitious things and get that experience, maybe even get out of your system. And I guess somehow along the way, I kind of built this reputation as the guy who would try and do the biggest, boldest stuff. And when it came time, you know, to graduate, I started getting people reaching out, asking me like, hey, I'm about to make a short, I'm about to make a bigger thing. And then I got a call from a student who had graduated the year before me named Ryan Coogler, who was about to make his first film, Fruitvale Station. He wanted to bring on, he had producers, he had financing pretty much in place, but he wanted to bring on, you know, like not younger, but just people who, you know, were from his background, because we all went to USC together. So he brought me on along with a group of other young producers, and we kind of all got to work together. And I think part of it was because of a recommendation from students and professors of you know, I guess my producing work ethic or whatever.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Ryan and I talk a lot about networking in the film industry and how important it is to keep those relations tight, because you never know, I guess, when you can meet the next Ryan Coogler, which is pretty amazing. You did mention a good producer has a good, you know, director's back at times. Mm-hmm. I understand that while you were at USC Film School, amongst Ryan Coogler, you also met Anish Shiganti, who you collaborated with on some projects, some great projects, Searching and Run. How did you guys first meet, and how did you end up collaborating?
That's awesome. It's funny because USC truly has introduced me to my three most intense, consistent collaborations, one being Ryan, one being Anish, who we'll talk about, and then the other person that USC connected me to was my wife now, Kasabian, who we also produced together, and, you know, we produced a bunch of indies together, and then she ended up producing Searching as well as Run. So thank you, USC. It was money well spent. With Anish, I was in my last, it's so funny, actually, the semester that I was, my final semester at school, like literally in the class that I got the call from Ryan asking me if I was available to help him out on Fruitvale, it was a class in which I was a TA on. So I was like a TA or student assistant, SA, where I was kind of helping other professors run a class in which students were having to direct, produce, and make these bigger movies. So Anish at the time was actually a producer in this class. You know, he ultimately wanted to be a director, but the way it worked is you had to first work as another crew position, then you got to direct the following semester. And I remember, you know, in this class, I was a TA. I kind of was like, you know, kind of always observing all the students who would talk and all that. The way Anish would talk about storytelling and filmmaking, his taste, it was so aligned with my own personal taste. You know, like, what is even taste? Like, how do you develop taste? It's like, I don't know if there's really a science to it, but I think clearly we had read the same books, we had watched the same movies and TV shows. And in a lot of ways, you know, Anish is Indian American, I'm Armenian American. Like, even though we were kind of different in that way, like we also had very similar upbringings and very similar families and very similar values. And we honestly just clicked. I mean, honestly, like, you know, you click with a lot of people in film school, but there was certainly like, man, like we understand each other, you know? And, you know, I was a TA, so I was a couple years older than him. I was a grad student. He was an undergrad. But when I went off to help produce Fruitvale Station, that movie then got into Sundance. We had, you know, an incredible run at Sundance that year, won a bunch of awards, sold the movie really nicely. A week or two after I got back from Sundance, Anish had asked if I would be able to get drinks with him. So we caught up, went to our on-campus school, like, bar, I guess. And, you know, we just had a beer and we were just catching up on everything that happened at Sundance. And one of the things that I'd always encourage students to do when I was a TA was, you know, come up with, every single night, come up with one idea for a movie you would write. I was kind of crazy in that way. I'm like, I think you got to just have this endless slate of projects. You never know which one. And Anish had a piece of paper with him and he was like, hey man, can I pitch you the 5 ideas I've come up with that I want to maybe write as a movie? He pitched me 5 movies and I thought they were pretty decent, but one of them I was like, yo, that's a really cool idea, man. And he was like, dude, you're not going to believe this, but that's actually my favorite one. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. We're like on the same page here. And, you know, over the next couple of weeks, like very organically, he's like, hey man, can I just kind of pitch you like things on that idea? If I come up with some more ideas, I was like, yeah, man. So we would get on phone calls. He would kind of walk me through a couple of ideas he had and I would respond. And over time, we kind of started just from like, dude, like, do you want to just write this movie together? He's like, dude, hell yeah. So we started writing a script together. And like, it was really this amazing process where like, it was both of our first like real feature film. We wrote this movie. By the way, years later, when we were at Sundance with Searching, we were literally being interviewed on some like, I don't know, you know, industry magazine thing. They're like, can you tell each other a secret you've never told each other? And I was like, Anish, I really value you, blah, 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 blah. He was like, well, you know that time I told you that idea you liked was my favorite of the 5? I was like, yeah. He's like, I was lying. I would have said anyone was my favorite if it was my favorite. So I know our entire relationship is built on a lie. But that's a script that we wrote. You know, it would make $100 million, like 4 quadrant swashbuckling Disney movie. We called it Animal Heist. It was about the world's greatest thief has to throw all of his has to forget all his rules when he's brought on to pull off the wildest heist ever, stealing a 400-pound gorilla from the LA Zoo. So it was like Ocean's 11, but like meets National Geographic. And like, it was awesome. Like, it was so huge, so epic, so many cool heist elements. And I remember I was like, man, Dad, I'm going to sell the script with Anish. We're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he was like, I'll give you guys $200 for it right now. I mean, Anish were like, $200? Dad, we're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's like, $200, you got 24 hours to accept. We were like, you're crazy. To this day, we never sold that script. And I wish we took the deal with my dad. But well, we learned with that script for 2 unknown entities. You know, we hadn't written anything. And I was a co-producer on this tiny low budget movie, Fruitvale, which did really well and got incredible acclaim. We were not the people to go out there writing a movie that would cost $100 million and require probably only the rights of Disney. And we actually got pretty far along with that script at Disney. It just wasn't going to work for us. But we realized that we needed to make something smaller and we had to like lean in on our talents. And our talents were that I was at the time, you know, a fairly emerging, successful indie producer. And Anish at the same time was also really kind of building a reputation as an incredible commercial director, because we had made this little Google Glass commercial together that got so big that he ended up getting hired at Google. And we were like, we got to write something that we could say, Anish, you're going to direct it, I'm going to produce it, and we can make it for a small budget and not require a 400-pound gorilla. And that is, you know, honestly what led us to writing Searching.
Yeah, Carson and I both adore Searching. I first saw it back in theaters, actually. I remember seeing it with my mom and dad, and years before we saw Unfriended, because it was kind of like, you know, the computer. And so we're like, all right, we're going to go see Searching, and really excited. And we were blown away. We didn't realize how invested we were going to be. And one of the specific things, and I kind of want to talk about more like the writing process, seems like a lot to handle within that film as far as editing and having his face on FaceTime. So you kind of get a sense of where he is spatially within, you know, outside of the computer. So you kind of talk about, you know, the ideas that you had. How, first of all, was that writing process, working with someone else? And obviously someone so passionate about it, but also just the success of the film. Because like you said, that film did amazing and it got critical acclaim, and it's, yeah, everyone I talk to loves it. So.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was cool. Like, you know, we honestly had to pretty much invent how to write that film, because we sold the pitch to the same financiers who did Unfriended. And Anisha and I had seen Unfriended, and we didn't love Unfriended. We're not really the biggest horror fans per se ourselves, but also watching the film, like we were kind of like, man, this is not real. Like, I don't know anyone who like does Skype calls with their, you know, like it's something, we just kept getting taken out of it. So we knew that, you know, when we pitched the movie, we were like, guys, like it's, you know, that company has like a rule book. Like everything's got to be one wide shot. Everything's got to be real time. Like there's all these weird rules, and we're like, no, man, like we want to do like really cinematic. We want to have the camera moving around. We want to have editing. We want to not be real time. We want to jump through entire childhoods in like 2 minutes. Like we kind of like, we made it clear we're going to do our own thing. And, you know, to that company's credit, they were incredibly collaborative, and they let us have complete creative control, which we will never, ever have again. But it was great while we had it. And, you know, it was, you know, I can talk about the structure. Like we knew going into that film, it's a story about a father searching for his missing daughter. And like Anisha and I are huge fans of the Save the Cat, Blake Snyder beat sheet. We're religiously obsessed with that. I know that I've seen somewhere like in like the internet screenwriting culture, people like look down on that. But I feel like anyone who I know that's like an established screenwriter like all swears by it. Like you break the movie into 3 acts, and you know that your log line, you know, desperate father searches for a missing daughter by breaking into her laptop. That's got to be the beginning of Act 2. All right, cool. So we know that that's Act 2. And then, so therefore, what's Act 1? We know that halfway in the middle of Act 1, you're inciting incident. Okay, well, that's probably when he finds out that she's missing. And we're like, no, that doesn't make sense, because the moment she's missing, you look for her. Oh, then maybe it's actually when she goes missing, and with the rest of Act 1 is him slowly realizing that. You know, this is the debate section if you know screenwriting. Cool. What's our opening image? It's like, okay, well, it's a story about connection, right? It's about a father who's trying to find his daughter. But how interesting would it be is in the process of trying to find her, he realizes that he lost her long before she went missing. And you realize that, you know, it's really a story about them being disconnected. So therefore, the opening image should be them being connected, because we see what we had once upon a time. And okay, cool, like we're now like, that's Act 1. So then Act 2 begins, fun and games. And then we, you know, you want to introduce a second character, like who's our B story relationship? Well, a father is not really somebody who's equipped to find a missing person. So, you know, I really believe in the rules of contrast. It's like, okay, then who is? Well, what about if a missing person's detective? Boom, bada bing, we got it. So then it's her relationship with him. And like what the conflict is going to be like, you know, like how can we make them actually connect? It's like, well, what if she's a mother too? And it's like, great, so we connect on that really emotional primal level. Then we're going to have our fun and games. Well, what is the fun and games of a missing person story? It's like the going door to door, knocking, you know, like looking through places. But like if the movie takes place on a computer, we can't do any of that, except, wait a minute, we can. Let's have this father, like, and, you know, exploring FaceTime and like randomly looking at people on, you know, Instant Messenger or whatever. And I'm also a big believer in that your break to Act 2 should be your protagonist embarking on a journey, like literally entering the woods. You know, like what is the woods of searching? It's actually her computer. You know, like you establish John Cho as like this kind of nerdy, like, you know, Silicon Valley programmer kind of guy, and now he's on a 16-year-old girl's laptop. Like that is just as scary as Harry Potter and the Forbidden Forest for certain fathers. Then, you know, your midpoint is, you know, the question you're asking your break to 2 is, you know, in a mystery movie, what happened? You know, like, did she run away? Did she get killed? Did she get kidnapped? Is she part of a cult? Like, these are all the questions that we kind of explore in the fun and games, but your midpoint, you got to answer it. And, you know, I'm going to start spoiling a little bit of searching here, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We find out that she was abducted. And the ending of your Act 2, it's like, I think the thing you set off to accomplish in Act 2, I've always been a believer that you should fail at the end of Act 2. So she's already missing in the break to Act 2. And these are big, big spoilers for searching. For anyone who hasn't seen it, please, you know, click pause, go see the movie, and come back. She's already missing at the break to 2. How could you fail that? Well, she could be dead. So our break to 3 is not only is she missing now, but she's dead. And there's a lot of, you know, internal conflicts there. And like the father realizes that she was missing because of him, and he did fail, and he did destroy the only other family he has, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that's kind of like our structural approach. And Anish and I are huge about like, we don't even touch final draft for months and months and months until after we've been already talking about the movie forever and having all these conversations about what makes sense structurally. And then with searching, it was also, we open our computer and we're like, all right, so what do we got here? We got the shutdown button. What does that mean? Well, to me, shutting down is implying quitting. Cool. So we should have a moment where he's going to quit the case. And, you know, like we compare that film to all the best, like we watched every great like mystery whodunit movie, like, you know, Gone Girl and you know, Mystic River. And it's like so many of these movies have a moment where the detective, you know, is looking at the crime scene one last time. There's not a single piece of evidence and the case is pretty much over. And as they go to turn off the light to leave, they see a tiny little smudge on the light switch and they follow that smudge and the entire case, you know, cracks open again. And to us, it's like, all right, he should hit shut down. And as the seconds are coming down, he's going to see something. And like, you know, that's part of our midpoint reveal. And we talked about, what does it mean to delete a file? What does it mean to empty your trash? What does it mean to type a text and not send it? So we were like, okay, these are cool things that we felt, you know, frankly, Unfriended did not explore enough. And like, if this movie is going to be on a computer, if it's going to be this much of a gimmick, let's really lean into it and make it, you know, entirely inherent. And what's crazy is, you know, making that movie was incredible. And it was my first time being the lead producer. And Natalie, my wife, who's partner, she was along with me. And it was Anisha's first movie. Like, it was incredible. We made that movie for $800,000 and it made $75 million with what we felt like was like no marketing money. So thank you for seeing Ryan in theaters. But we really felt like at the time we had done everything we possibly could with that genre. And then now we're making Searching 2. Because at the time, like we, you know, like Sony asked us for a sequel. And we were like, dude, there's no way she goes missing again. Like, this is not taken. But we realized, like, you know, like, this is an incredible opportunity because we could give the opportunity that we were once given to someone else and help boost someone else's career. And Will Merrick and Nick Johnson were the two editors of Searching 1 and also Run. They are now the writers and directors of Searching 2. And that was a major reason why we said yes to this, is because we knew that those guys were so talented on Searching 1. And I've always felt they were criminally under-recognized for what they did on that film. That we, you know, like Anish and I came up with the story. We got paid to write the treatment. So it's like the entire movie beginning to end, but not the screenplay. And those guys took that and they're fleshing it out beautifully into like such an amazing like story. Like, I'm so excited. And like, it's not going to be what people expect, but it's going to be so surprising yet also satisfying. And it's in a lot of ways, it's like revisiting themes and ideas from Searching 1, but with a really cool meta twist. And I can't say much more than that, but it's like, it's going to be freaking awesome. Like, I can't wait for people to see what we're working on.
Geez, I think Ryan and I, before that, we were already excited for Searching 2, but now I think he boosted it up to another level. So we appreciate that.
I'm probably going to regret that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Searching, you get some incredible performances out of that film, including, you know, John Cho and whatnot, but a performance that I think some viewers may not be familiar with is from the producer and the co-writer of the film. So Sev, you acted as an extra in this film. I think I spotted you maybe one or two scenes, maybe I think the movie theater scene. You even got your hand holding the mic in a scene.
Wow, where did you see that? Holy crap.
I do my research. What was that like playing someone in your own film?
Hey, look, man, it was a low budget movie, bro. We did not have the money for extras. It was like, we need somebody right now. And I'm like, I'll jump in. Let's do it. I mean, I was the incredible performance of the microphone when John Cho was giving the people to come please help him find his daughter. I was in the movie theater, and also I was probably the most distracting extra of all time in the background of the student Isaac at the coffee shop. It is just literally, you know, it's just honestly, we had no money and we needed somebody. But that's so funny. It's so funny because my sister, who is so amazing and such a supporter of mine, and she's like this high-powered entertainment attorney, she visited set 3 times and was an extra 3 times. Like, they literally they put her in hair and makeup and everything. And then just, you know, the way these movies get cut, she's nowhere in the movie itself. But she is, if you remember near the end of the movie, a certain character is Googling like pretty girl. and like we see all these pictures of different girls, and what gets clicked and that gets made into a profile picture. One of those pretty girls is my sister. So we were able to
there you go.
thank her for coming to set 3 times. Thanks, Ramala. No, and it was a lot of fun. Making Searching One was such a family affair. It was kind of like the Avengers for me, and in the sense that me and Natalie had produced all these little tiny indie films, kind of like for other producers. Like we were junior producers on those, and we were able to kind of all the best crew members and all the greatest people that work with us were like, hey man, come work on this film. And now that we're making a sequel, and this time it's not an indie film, it's a Sony movie, like, come, let's do this again and get paid properly this time. And actually get awarded for, we really believe, having kind of come up in the indie route, like, I guess I'm not one of those producers that's been, able to start as an executive or in the office or like come with the money. Like, all I knew was gratitude. We couldn't ever pay anybody, especially ourselves, properly. So it was like, we're going to make sure that their time is being valued and that their work is being paid proper gratitude to. And then I think for us, it's such an amazing feeling to be able to, on those movies we get people back in, but on now it's like, hey man, come get paid properly on these studio movies. It's one of the best things about being a producer.
Yeah, speaking of, I want to go back to mentioning, you said the pretty girl with the stock image.
Yeah.
When I was watching Run, and maybe we can lead into this film and the brilliance of everything about this film, but there's a little cameo I'm not sure everyone would pick up, is when she's looking in the very beginning of the film. I don't really think this is a spoiler, it's more of just an observation. One of the Washington YouTube things is that same stock woman, Hannah, I think was her name in Searching. Yep. So do you, from like a writing standpoint, do you try to plant those Easter eggs into your films? And I was like really excited when I saw that. But yeah, so do you look for like where to put some Easter eggs or anything?
Look, I'm a huge fan of Easter eggs. Like when I watch a movie, and this has been for like the last 15 years, but even to this day, I finish a movie, I go on IMDb trivia, I read all that, I go on Wikipedia, I read that. My favorite website on the planet is a site called TV Tropes. I go read all that. I look at the Reddit discussion. Like, I love that stuff. And I get really excited at like little tiny details. Like, I think like, Back to the Future is a masterpiece, like treasure chest, where like every piece of set design has changed depending on what Marty did in the past. It's so brilliant that that was always important to us. And I think I've always been a fan of like the Tarantino universe, where it's like all of his movies have the same fictional cigarettes and stuff like that. So with Run, it was a very, what's funny is we had a deleted scene where the daughter in Run, Chloe, she's looking at an actual college textbook, and she's looking like longingly, like those really cheesy college textbooks where it's all like a bunch of friends hanging out. And like there's always like somebody who's a different ethnicity. It's like so cheesy and so artificial. But we had one of those, and we're like one of the models in that textbook photo was Hannah Party, but we cut that scene, so we're like, oh, pop her in the movie. Like, I just think it's something fun for people to like notice when they watch a movie, and it implies that there's a more connected world. And like we have like we're doing Searching 2, which is going to be incredibly connected to Searching 1 and Run and all of our movies. And like, in Searching 1, there's Easter eggs that foreshadow Run, like in the way that Pixar does. Right. And in Run, there's some major Easter eggs that foreshadow our next movie. And like, just for fun, like these movies take so long to make, especially the Screen movies where like you're just editing for months and months. Why not pop the little thing? Do you guys know about the aliens in Searching 1?
No.
Oh
the
my
aliens?
God. I cannot. You guys are Searching fans. You don't know about the aliens. This is amazing. I love that I get to tell you guys this. So, I know your faces are amazing. You're like, what aliens? All right. Searching 1. David Kim has the 5 craziest days of his life trying to find out what happened to his daughter. While he's doing this, we're looking at the movie through his eyes on these computer screens. And at certain times, he's on social media platforms. At certain times, he's looking at news articles. If you really pay attention, while the movie is unfolding, while these 5 days are passing by, if you look at a summation of various comments on social media posts or news articles or things that are happening in the background, you will possibly notice that while this is taking place, there is an impending alien invasion of planet Earth that is becoming more and more severe and more public. I am not making this up. I swear to you guys.
Oh my goodness.
Like literally just Google searching movie aliens and see what comes up.
I'm gonna do it right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I 100% believe it right now.
Yeah, there's here's some Reddit. Yeah, here, okay. Okay, I hope it doesn't, I'm looking at Sony Pictures, real footage of alien sighting, 5/14/17, a YouTube video. Okay, let's see what else. NASA has issued an advisory for approaching electromagnetic anomaly. Okay. Oh my, I tried to look for that anomaly in the sky, internet lights. Wow. And there's M. Night Shyamalan there. Superfan, extraterrestrial. That's crazy. Oh yeah, everyone, how on earth did I miss this? In the comments, that is nuts. NASA informed right as they're looking in the car. NASA calls emergency. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So are we gonna get a space movie then? So looking at all these, like, I hope so. Well, I guess, that's nuts.
Wow, yeah, I'm kind of mind blown right now.
So
Yeah, where do you want to take this now, Carson? I kind of want to go rewatch the movie now. Sorry, Sev, but
like, look, man, like Searching One has a enormous twist, as you guys probably know, in the third act.
yeah,
That makes you want to like rethink everything you've seen up until then.
right.
With the character involved, that twist. In our minds, we're like, okay, well, once you've seen the movie twice, maybe you'll see it a third time just to see what's going on with the aliens. And like, it was just something to add to the rewatchability of it all. Like, I love shows like Lost. I love shows like even Community that like has a lot of fun with pepper details. Like, it just makes you want to. I don't know. It just like it shows that the creators care about your experience. Rather than just like things being in the side just randomly. It's like, why not? Like, I would argue every single line of text in this film is either thematically or in this case, like Easter egg, early, like relevant to what's happening on screen.
Wow. I'm glad you mentioned Community. I'm sorry I have to bring that up too, because Ryan and I are diehards. Our goal is to get Gillian Jacobs on the podcast to talk Community.
Why her in particular? And I love her too. I'm just curious.
Oh man, we're also fans of the show Love that's on Netflix. Yeah. She gives a great performance throughout that series. It's anyone you could pick from that show, and I'd be happy. You could throw on Allison Brie. We'd be more than happy. Joel McHale. Anyone.
What I love about Gillian and Britta is that like that show has a great example of Flanderization. Do you guys know what that term is in storytelling?
No.
So this is from my favorite website called TV Tropes, but like Flanderization is something that happens to a lot of television shows, or any kind of series that happens over a period of time, which is like Ned Flanders in the early episodes of Simpsons was just like a decent guy neighbor. He was kind of like the opposite of Homer. He's not an asshole, but he was a little bit religious and like he was a little bit like a nerdy. That's it. But he was a regular person. Right. By season 7, he's like crazy religious, like super nerdy. Like he doesn't seem human anymore. Because what happens is you take the most prominent quality and you kind of just enhance it and exaggerate. That's all they have become. I think with Britta, I'll never forget, I love that show. I love that character. Like, she was kind of like the cool chick in the first couple of episodes, like very cool. Like, obviously Joel wanted her and all that. And like, she was really focused on school and she had a little bit of a quirky side, but like later seasons, she's like totally freaking quirky. And at one point, I think Joel McHale's like, weren't you smart at one point? It's like,
right.
Like obviously it's the most self-referential show in history, I would imagine. Like, I love that they're even poking fun at the fact that like her characterization, if you watch episode 1 and like season 3, episode 9, like it's like difficult. But yeah, I would love for you guys to do that. I'd listen to that for sure.
Great. Yeah, that's definitely a goal of ours. So that's funny you bring that up though. I have a new term now in my dictionary. Right. That's actually really good to know. I do want to get back on track. I think the aliens thing threw me to a different century. But I do want to get back on Run just because it is such a great movie and I do want to talk about it with you. And to start that conversation, I really do want to talk about Sarah Paulson because she gives a fantastic performance in this film and she gives pretty much a fantastic performance in anything she does. Love her in American Horror Story and just a plethora of other things. She's been doing some great work as of late. what was that like, getting to cast her? And did you write that role with her in mind from the beginning?
Man, that's a great question. We were so lucky to get Sarah. Part of the strategy of Run was we really wanted to cast Kira. Kira Allen, who was basically a first-time actor, at least on a feature film, who played the role of daughter / Chloe. And Kira Allen in real life, has a disability. And I think for us, it was really important to cast authentically for this role. So we didn't know who Kira was, but we were certainly writing for her, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But, being, business-minded and being a producer, it's like, I knew we couldn't just write a movie about that character. Like, that movie doesn't sell, that the movie doesn't get, picked up and budgeted and funded. I mean, I think all that's wrong, and I wish that wasn't the case, but being a realist, that is how Hollywood works. Like, we need to pair Kira with a face, with a Hollywood name that has value. And Anish and Natalie and myself, we put together a list of all of our favorite actresses, and we had our dream actors, and then we had the actors who were probably we're probably going to get one of these more realistic actors. Sarah was a dream actor. We weren't anticipating getting Sarah freaking Paulson. And she's also been having this moment recently, so well deserved. And I became a huge fan of hers first in the O.J. Simpson, American Story thing. She was so incredible in that. And, she's obviously been this genre queen on American Horror Story and all these other Ryan Murphy shows. When we sent her the script, basically being ready to be all right, well, she's going to say no, and we could really start casting in earnest. And she was like, that's interesting. I'm down to talk to you guys and meet and talk. And we ended up getting, we were lucky that we got to get her. And she was actually incredibly crucial to us getting Kira, because she really was behind our mission and supported us against the powers that be and made that happen. And, it was just cool. I'm kind of getting chills right now. She really understood the character of Mother. I think that character could have been played so campy and so over the top. Mm-hmm. And Sarah has this ability to do that, but do it in a way that's artful and elevated. And she I'm not going to lie, our initial instinct of the movie was that it would be a little bit more grounded and it wouldn't go to the lengths and kind of just turning up the dial when it does as much as it did. And I think it was kind of just the process of making the movie and working with the studio, it became clear that that's what the movie needed to be. Sarah was like, I got you. We would just say action, boom, and then she turns it off. How's that? And it's yeah, she was incredible. She really was incredible. Her primal dynamic. It's funny, we were talking about WandaVision. The whole time we were developing Run, I kept thinking of it as imagine that the character of Mother, Diane, has created a bubble around her in which everything within the bubble is a lie that she's invented, whether it's the house they live in and the circumstances that they have. And anytime that bubble gets threatened of being poked, which is, most of the movie, things are happening, she'll do whatever it takes to patch that hole. But at the end of the movie, that bubble is going to get burst, and what's going to come out of that bubble is going to be really freaking crazy. So I'd always give this, analogy to Anish, to Natalie, to it was kind of the way we metaphorically saw that character. And when I'm watching WandaVision, I'm like, yo, that's literally that. I love WandaVision. But no, Sarah was a dream, man. She was incredible. I think the movie would not have been financed, would not have been released. It would not be the fact that it has thousands and millions or whatever, fans still to this day hitting us up on social media, sharing their fan art and incredible videos that they're making. That's all thanks to Sarah. She made that happen.
Yeah, the performances in the film with Sarah and Kira are amazing, and even with Kira, I really commend that to cast somebody who deals with those real life issues. And I was watching the film too. I'm like, wow, I don't know how, as an actor, because I didn't know any of this going into the film. I was like, wow, that's it's really authentic, and I'm a huge fan of her, and I could not imagine anybody else playing that role. So she's brilliant. Sarah, yeah, I'm excited to see.
What's crazy about her is it's almost unfair, because she's also at the same time an incredibly talented writer. And I'm just how could you be that good of an actor and be that good of a writer? I've read a bunch of her stuff, and it's damn, I thought I was a decent writer. It's she's so young, she's still in college, she's got all these aspirations. I think she's such an incredible actor, and I'm excited that I know that she's in talks and involved in certain projects that are freaking insane. And I'm so happy for her because she deserves it all. But I just hope she never forgets it's all because of me. And no matter how big she gets, still, oh, I'm totally kidding. But no, Kira's amazing. Like, we put that girl through so much on making that movie, and she literally nailed it every time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everything's so physical. I mean, when you think back, like, okay, you got the side of the house on the roof, and I'm not going to say too much more just as far as if anybody hasn't seen it, but I'm curious too, as from writing and producing that one as well. First of all, I loved your titles, how you do the title cards and everything. That's pretty sweet. How do you approach producing Run compared to Searching? Is there any difference? Obviously you keep the same philosophy, but what was the difference in creating both of those films, and especially with Run?
That's a great question, man. I mean, like, from a producer perspective, like, we made Searching for $800,000, right? Well under $1 million. Run was bigger. It was our first studio movie, but it's literally like the smallest budget a studio movie can have and still be a studio movie. So we were not swimming in money, either ourselves or the budget or anything. We had to make it very economical. And kind of like by design, before we even started writing that script, we kind of knew, like, our goal for Anish, Natalie, and I is to make our third movie that we're making. Like, I'm not even including Searching 2. Like, there's a movie we're writing right now called Citizen. Like, that's the big one. Like, that's gonna be a huge 4-quadrant, like, in your face kind of movie. But to make that, we have to make Run. We're like, we can't have people finance a huge movie based on Searching. And this is kind of like before Searching had even come out, because it's a computer movie. You know, like, people will still be questioning, can Anish set a camera down and direct 2 actors? Can he direct the proper action sequence and all these things? So in developing Run, it was like, what's a movie we can make for a relatively low budget, which, usually means contained, that can have within it the capacity for some real nail-biting set pieces. And like, was like, okay, the midpoint sequence for this movie's got to be this Mission Impossible type, sequence on a budget that's basically impossible, like, for what we're trying to do. And like, for us, it's like Tom Cruise on the Burj Khalifa or whatever is so insane. Can we do that, but like grounded? And I'd like to think we did. And on top of that, it's like, but it also has to be elevated. Like, we didn't want to make something that, like, no disrespect to these movies, but like, that would feel like something you get out of Redbox, like, where it's like, oh, it's a cool action thing, but like, it had to have emotion and heart and talk about something. And like, like I mentioned earlier, Anish and I and Natalie too, we all come from such tight-knit families, and it's kind of a big part in our lives. And I think Searching kind of, makes that apparent, like, it's so family driven, and the movie's sentimental and sweet, and the opening makes you cry maybe. Like, Run, we should do the same, but kind of upside down. It's about love and it's about family, but it's kind of like a perversion of that, and a commentary on like how much is too much when you're loving your child, and like, what does it mean to need your parent? At what point does dependency become abuse? And like, we're like, okay, well, we can tell a story that like covers these really juicy topics, would make for some really great performances, including a discovery actress, involve all sorts of really fun set pieces that, while they're not like Mission Impossible scale, like, they're just as heart, pounding. Then we can have a movie that, like, if this movie works, if it's successful, whether it's good reviews, whether it's audience reception, whether it's, accolades, or we obviously didn't have a box office release, but I think we broke some records or whatever. Like, if all that works, then great. We made another great movie, helped launch the career of somebody like Kira Allen, who's amazing and deserves it. And then we can go make our next movie. So producing for that, it was like, early on, it was a lot of conversations to that end. Like, really thinking very big picture. It's like, again, like, you guys probably got the sense from talking about how we outlined Searching. Like, I'm not particularly the kind of writer that just sits down and just starts writing. It's like, you got to kind of have the whole thing mapped out. And it's sometimes you just can't ignore the fact that there's a budget and there's an industry, and like, what kind of movies are going to get greenlit, what kind are not. Like, all of that kind of went to Run, and I'm really proud of what we ended up with.
Yeah, and as you should be too, because it's hard to find something truly unique right now, and I think that's why we got so passionate before the podcast talking about WandaVision, because when you see something unique and you see something new, it definitely strikes a chord with people, and I think that's your filmography so far, which is cool to see. I want to touch on something we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, because you mentioned how your mom would take you to the library and you'd pick these movies. So you're growing up and you're essentially a fan of film, and you're watching these movies. And now you're not only making movies, but you're making movies with with big stars. I mean, we referenced Sarah Paulson. We referenced Fruitvale Station with, Michael B. Jordan. And now you've got, a huge film coming out with, Judas and the Black Messiah with Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. And you've got LeBron. And this is crazy. I mean, these are some big time celebrities. What's that like, getting up close and personal with some of the best actors working today?
Man, I don't know if I would be able to answer that question if it weren't for, all I can think about is Judas and the Black Messiah. Obviously, that movie comes out, for us in a couple of days. But, when I'm on set, with our crew, with our cast, or even in pre-production meetings with our cast or whatever, I'm not really thinking about, oh my God, I'm next to this incredible celebrity. This is so cool. All I'm thinking is I hope the scene's working. I hope we can afford this. And I hope, the director can understand this and the actor can understand that. All I'm thinking about is work. But with Judas and the Black Messiah, and not that I've never worked with phenomenal actors before, I clearly have John Cho, Sarah Paulson, even Kira Allen, everybody. But Judas and the Black Messiah, being on set to watch Daniel Kaluuya perform as Chairman Fred Hampton was truly the first time I've had an out-of-body experience. Because I know Daniel, who is, he's from England. He has a very natural, British accent of his own. But in our movie, he's playing the 1960s Chicago dude who has a very specific way of speaking, and what he's speaking and his mannerisms and the way he carries himself. I mean, I just remember watching a couple of scenes, some of his speech scenes in that film, and just being wow, I knew that I was watching. I'm not crazy about awards and stuff like that. I don't think those mean, everything in movies, but I was man, this is an Oscar worthy performance. And the fact that I get to watch it live, there's no screen view. I'm watching him. I'm 5 feet away. That was one of the times I was man, I cannot believe. I used to shoot with my dad's own video camera. My friend acting like he's a parent with makeup that I put on his face. And now I'm here watching Daniel Kaluuya play Chairman Fred Hampton. It was yo, this is not normal. And Lakeith Stanfield, who has been truly, I think, one of the greatest actors working today.
Right.
And nailing this performance that is, even arguably harder to play than Chairman Fred because there's so many layers to Lakeith's performance in playing William O'Neill. It was just insane, and at the same time, I got to spend an entire summer hanging out with LeBron James, and he is in a weird kind of way, probably one of the most humble, kind, somebody who cares. He really, LeBron, I wasn't the biggest basketball fan growing up. I'm not a really big sports guy, but I'm a fan of LeBron James. And not even because of his acting, but just man, the humility that man has, and how giving he is. And to me it was yeah, I'm very lucky to be doing what I do. And yeah, I think, I said, it's not about the celebrity, it's not about the stars or the Instagram follower account or whatever, but I've been lucky that I've been able to work on some really, really cool stuff lately.
Yeah, Carson, I can attest to this as well, but you're definitely one of our favorite people, obviously, just to follow, because everything you've done, everything you've touched it's turned to gold.
I'm only one of many people on these projects, so I might just be a bad person who gets to keep floating on.
Well,
just saying that.
Yeah, well, we'll just say it's all because of you. It's no, but we're huge fans, and hearing all this too, just coming from my perspective, where coming from a world where, okay, I'm at that stage where it's trying to figure stuff out, and how do I meet people? How do I try to break into this industry? What, to kind of encapsulate everything that we've talked about, what are some tips that you would give up and coming filmmakers, aspiring artists who want to break into the industry?
It's a great question, man. For me, I think about things very statistically. If you really add up the number of students graduating from USC every year from all the various film disciplines, it's I don't know, it's 800 people every year who's entering. I might be totally off of that number, but let's just assume. Let's just say it's 500 people. They're entering the film industry. Then you add up all the film schools, including yours, all the ones across America. It's probably 2,000 people at least entering the film industry every year as entry-level people. Not to mention the people who, you don't need film school to be a filmmaker. I can guarantee you that. Another 1,000. So there's like thousands of people every year entering this industry. Ignoring the ones who have already entered but have yet to, blow up or whatever, it's crazy daunting. Like the odds are stacked against you ever making a splash as a writer, director, producer, whatever. I think the only thing you can do is to kind of try and, give yourself advantages wherever you can. The best advantage you can give yourself is if you're born rich. If you don't have that advantage, like, it's not impossible, but it's going to be a lot harder. I think the next advantage that I think matters the most is not having connections, but I think it's self-education. Like, I'm a huge, huge, huge believer in become an expert on something in a way that is easy to do. I don't believe you should reach out to people and ask for advice or ask for a meeting, because I think everyone's doing that, and you're going to be another one of many people. But like, I believe in reading every book you can get your hands on in this industry. Like, learn everything about screenwriting, even if you don't want to be a writer, because that is obviously the core of every movie. Like, read books on finance, read books on film festivals, read books on the business of the entertainment industry. Like I'm just looking at all my books here about the industry. Like, I think set yourself, you will immediately become one of like the top 20%, not just the 100% of like people entering the business. I think read screenplays like religiously. And like one of the tips that I discovered far too late was every time I would read screenplays only by a single writer, it was really different. Like, if I read all of Aaron Sorkin's scripts that I can get my hands on, and it was like, whoa, like I started to realize, oh, if I flip the page, it'll be this word. Yep, I was right. Like, because you start to really subconsciously pick up on that writer's, style or whatever. I think, what you got, listen to these podcasts. Like, I'm a huge believer in YouTube. Like, I love Lessons from the Screenplay. It's one of my favorite channels. There's so many incredible like story analysis, like YouTube videos, and obviously more podcasts. Like, really absorb all these things, like because it's relatively free. Like, you can get books for free from libraries. They're very cheap if you buy them used. YouTube podcasts are all free. Like, there's no excuse not to become an expert without even having done anything. Like, this is all before you write, before you make movies, or even shorts. So to me, like, I think the thing that sets certain people apart from others when they're entering this business are the ones who've like, like, if this is really your passion, like, you've proven it by the fact that even before you, enter the door, you've already been fully become an expert. Like, it's really what has helped me. It's just being, self-educated, I guess.
Wow, so that's that's some good advice right there, and it's authentic to you. I think Ryan and I both are just profoundly grateful for you to come on this podcast.
Yeah.
You've given us some great insight into the industry and really uncovered some of the secrets behind your great films. Thank you so much for coming on. This was an honor, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you guys. It was honestly really fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate. Carson and I have been really excited to talk to you, and obviously just hearing all of this from filmmaking, personal, whatever. It's awesome, and we'll schedule a WandaVision episode where we can talk about that.
Oh yeah.
So we'll do that, but yeah, we don't want you keeping us from watching the Super Bowl any longer. Well, but again, we're really grateful. We're honored, and we cannot wait to see everything else that you got coming up. And so Judas and the Black Messiah comes out, I think, Friday, I believe.
Yeah. Friday, February 12th,
Okay.
in limited theaters where they're still playing, and HBO Max, written and directed by Shaka King, who is a freaking insanely talented filmmaker, and produced by Ryan Coogler, Charles King, Shaka as well. And I'm so proud of that movie. And speaking of podcasts, on that same day, we're going to release the first in a series of podcasts that I helped produce with our company Proximity, along with 99% Invisible, a podcast, which is Judas and the Black Messiah official podcast. It is insanely cool because it's going to be featuring not only interviews with Shaka and our cast, but also with Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., who will talk about like the journey that he's had, fighting to preserve his father's legacy. So Judas and the Black Messiah podcast, February 12th, along with the movie.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, check that out, and then continue to be excited for Space Jam: A New Legacy. I know lots of people are excited for that, and that's a big year for Sev.
Yeah.
2021. That's a big year. We're excited to see your work unfold, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.